What is up, guys, and welcome back to The Last of Us episode reviews, and tonight we got episode 8, only one more before this season wraps up. And did I tell you it was going to be fucking awesome? So the title of this episode is When We Are in Need, and it focuses on the entire winter chapter of the first video game, where you take control of Ellie, and Joel is down for the count after his injury at the university. Pretty much same events, just slightly tweaked in the show. And we're immediately introduced to this other group, and this man who is presumed to be the leader, who is basically preaching to his community as they find out that members of their community have been killed, which you are led to believe are the people that Joel got into a fight with at the end of the last episode that left him possibly mortally injured. And this is a character that I was really looking forward to seeing how they were going to approach, because David is one of the creepiest characters in the first game because of how he's introduced, and his creepiness subtly kind of comes through in dialogue little by little, to where you never really quite understand the level of threat this guy is until he shows you. But as far as the TV show, and if you don't have any knowledge of the games, you're introduced to this community, and they seem to be religious in some way. They actually seem to be somewhat civil, and they find that some of their members are dead. And so aside from the fact that you know they're eventually probably going to be the opposite end of Joel and Ellie, they're going to be the antagonistic side of our protagonists, you are curious of whether or not they're actually bad people or not. Are these murderers and rapists and raiders, or is this just a genuine good community of people that unfortunately came across Joel and Ellie? So we catch back up with Ellie and Joel after her Left Behind segment from the last episode where she's having flashbacks. Joel is still injured, Joel is still healing, and Ellie goes out to try to find food, which is a whole gameplay segment that we kind of are kicked off this whole chapter with, which is you trying to go and hunt this deer. And it's the first time in the game that you're actually controlling Ellie and shooting as Ellie, and she gets to be kind of the leader of the situation. And it's the same thing here, to where she eventually comes across David and this character, I believe his name was James, and you get to see her authority come out. You get to see some of what she has learned from Joel, where she sticks them up and she has complete control of the situation and is in charge, won't let them make any decisions. And I really like seeing that aspect of Ellie come through in Bella Ramsey's performance, because especially as we get into The Last of Us Part 2, that's going to be a much more important aspect to her character.
Come out!
Hello? We just want to talk.
Any sudden moves and I put one right between your eyes. Ditto for buddy boy over there.
And fun fact, the guy that is playing the character of James, the right-hand man to David, the guy that we're going to talk a lot of this episode about, is actually portrayed by Troy Baker, who is the one who did the voice acting and the motion capture for Joel in both of the video games. He's one of the more prolific voice actors in video games, a ton of AAA games, especially on PlayStation side. You look through the cast, Troy Baker played one of the main characters, but he's most famous for playing Joel, and it was really cool to be able to see him play something in like a physical role, something like a TV show or a movie. And so I like the fact that, just like I said, whenever we got a couple of other voice actor castings throughout the season, that we're starting to get those types of things, that type of respect for the people that shepherded this franchise in the first place. Giving them a significant role in the TV show is awesome. And I loved the dialogue between Ellie and David, to where David seems non-threatening enough because he's portraying himself as that way. He's trying to get onto Ellie's good side. He's trying to get her to understand, like, we're not here to fight. That's all good. We'll send James to go get the medicine. Like, we're friendly people. Please, like, put the gun down. Let's hang out. And she slowly starts to let that guard slip a little bit, because this guy is very convincing. And I will say this, we're going to talk about it more throughout this review, but I actually prefer the version of David that we get in the show to the version of David that we get in the video game. Because while his threat level slowly and subtly builds throughout the video game, I immediately thought that guy was a little off and a little creepy in the video game, where here I feel like the actor portraying David actually does a better job, or the show does a better job at balancing it, where you have this very friendly, non-threatening side to David that actually convinces you. Even those of us that know he's eventually going to be a threat, there's a convincing side to that. And as we get through the rest of the episode, that other side of the pendulum, where he starts to get really fucking creepy and evil, I think even that is a little more intense. And they really go extra mile in the video game to try to get you convinced that David might actually be an ally, because there's a whole segment or two where you're actually fighting alongside David. You're like, he takes over the Joel role, where you're fighting off a bunch of infected. There's a segment where you actually have to fight another bloater. And so they're trying to get you to feel like this guy's friendly, like maybe he's going to be somebody who's an ally, maybe he's somebody who can help you and Joel, maybe he's not an enemy, and then they pull the rug out from under you with the reveal. But all the way through playing those, I always believed that that guy was a creep, no matter how much extra time they made you spend with him. And so for some reason, even the smaller amount of time we get with him, I felt it was more effective at kind of tricking you in the show. But the way the conversation goes down, where they start to let their guards down and Ellie starts to kind of open up a little bit and there's a little bit more friendly conversation, and then he just quietly lets it be known that they're looking for Joel and her.
Now, you see, I believe that everything happens for a reason.
Sure.
I do. And I can prove it to you. Now, this winter, that's been especially cruel. A few weeks back, I sent a group of men out to a nearby town to look for food. Only a few came back. They said that the others had been slaughtered by a crazy man. And get this, he's a crazy man traveling with a little girl. You see, everything happens for a reason.
And you as an audience member, at the same exact time that Ellie comes to the realization that this guy and this community might be more threatening than this show initially led on. And immediately you get Troy Baker's character back there that has her at gunpoint. And he's like, no, let her go. Let her take the medicine. It's okay. And just never really breaks eye contact with her. Again, subtle creepiness. And lets her go, knowing that she's eventually going to lead them exactly where they want her to lead them, which is to Joel. You also get a scene where they're back at the community, and the community is asking a bunch of questions to James and to David, and there's a woman that realizes that they have found the man that killed, it was either her husband or her dad, and she suggests that we need to kill them both, and David just straight up fucking slaps her in front of everybody. And again, that's another slight little climb where we realize that this community might not be the happy little Bible-thumping community that it first seemed, and this guy's got some serious totalitarian sides to him. And you're also wondering, why is he going to be so adamant about keeping Ellie alive? Like, what is it? Like, obviously they want to kill Joel, they want revenge there, but aside from the fact that she's a child, what other interest does he have in Ellie? And without taking a breath, you get back to Joel and Ellie, to where Ellie gives him the medicine and she tries to wake him up, tries to get him somewhat lucid, because the people that are with David are now kind of coming across the cabin and they're circling in and they're going to find them. And she leaves him with a knife and just says, hey, like, I got to lead these guys away, but if somebody comes down here that's not me, you know what to do. And that just leaves a really tense situation, because that's something that did not happen in the video game. Joel just wakes up later on after a couple of things that I'm about to discuss happen, and then you switch back over to Joel's perspective as he kind of explores and figures out where Ellie is going to be. Whereas this one, there's actually a threat that he still has to extinguish while he is fucked up and healing and sore and bleeding out and probably sick as well. And so she runs off with the horse. Really badass scene where she's trying to get their attention and shooting from behind her, shot really well, and they take her out. You know, James takes her out pretty quickly and takes her back to the community. And then you get the scene that, again, furthers how creepy and how sick and how scary the character of David actually is. To where, yet again, he's unassuming, he seems non-threatening enough, he's very mellow-mannered, and he's very mild-toned when he's talking to her, and he's trying to get her to understand, like, hey, like, the guy killed our people, like, I'm sure you've done the same thing, and is trying to appeal to her human nature, and is trying to convince her, like, you should stay with us. We've got plenty of food, we've got warmth, we've got all this stuff, like, we're probably a better situation for you. And the logic side of what he's saying slowly starts to transition into some ulterior motives, whenever physical touch starts to come into the conversation, to where she's not having any of it. She's hard-nosed, attitude Ellie all the way through. But as soon as he starts to add some gentle nature to his voice and add a little bit of, dare I say, seductive angle to him, and he starts to just lightly touch her hand. Again, subtlety. But you know exactly what his motivation for keeping Ellie alive is now. And you know exactly what his interests are. And so does Ellie. And I love the moment, and it's from the video game, so I couldn't wait for it to happen, where she breaks his finger, and he backs away from the jail cell, and he goes to stomp off, and it's, I'm trying to convince you, and then she goes, oh, well, Ellie's my name. Ellie's the name of the girl that broke your fucking finger. I love that line. That's one of the best Ellie lines in the first game. And then the sinister little response that David gives, where he's holding his finger, and he's like, how did you put it? Little pieces, and walks away.
You are making it very difficult to keep you alive. What am I supposed to tell the others now?
Ellie.
What?
Tell them that Ellie is the little girl that broke your fucking finger.
How did you put it? Huh? Tiny pieces.
And I can only imagine how intense this whole sequence goes down for those that don't already know the sequence of events and don't already have the knowledge of the video games, because not only do you get that crazy little reveal about what David actually is, but you also get the reveal, which is very creatively kind of hinted at throughout this episode, that they're cannibals. And that they've been killing people, either people from their own community who have died, or people that they have come across and that they have killed. And she just sees like a finger, or she sees like a body part underneath the table, and just comes to the whole realization. You've seen like them eating stews and soups, and yeah, what's the sicker element of that is that the entire community doesn't know that they're all cannibals, doesn't know that they're being fed human flesh and human meat and human muscular tissue, because David and James and the cooks are the only ones that actually know what's going on. And that is revolting. That is so fucking sick. And so an episode that was already intense for action reasons and for just genuine thrills is now absolutely insane for how sick it has gone down, how the depths of hell we have descended into just in a couple of minutes of dialogue with David's intentions and what he has been doing to his own community to allow them to survive, to preserve his community. And the tension goes off the charts, especially for those that haven't played the game, whenever James and David come back in and they rip Ellie out of the jail cell and they throw her onto the table, and they got the meat cleaver, and she gets them to stop by saying, "No, I'm infected." And get the little reveal that shows her bite mark, and because she bit David, she's starting to play with his head a little bit about, now you're infected because I was infected and I bit you, and James is freaking out, and she gets them to drop their guard in confusion just long enough for her to fucking take out old Troy Baker and get one over on David, leading up to one of the bigger set pieces that everybody always remembers from the video game, which is the restaurant, to where it's Ellie sneaking around, it's David with locked doors trying to find her, talking to her, continuing to just subtly ratchet up how sick and fucked up he is as he's talking to her. And there's a whole like boss battle segment in the video game where you have to sneak around and you have to stab him from behind and then sneak away. And if that guy sees you, it gets really intense quick, where he just chases after you and you have to go like try to find cover and try to find hiding spots. All the while the restaurant is continuing to burn and get filled with flame and smoke. It's an awesome set piece. And they recreated that beautifully in the show. I mean, just from a cinematography standpoint, when you get certain shots that just show the dark silhouette of David with the fire burning behind him and the restaurant getting engulfed in flames, and it's like him seeing his perfect community go up in smoke, because now everything is out in the open, and I love that. All the way to the point where he finally gets the drop on her, and it full-blown goes into, I mean, it doesn't go very far, it doesn't get very far, so don't worry if you're like sensitive to this kind of stuff, although I don't know why you'd be watching a spoiler if you haven't watched the episode. But it goes to where he's obviously going to try to sexually assault Ellie while the fucking place is filling with fire and smoke. That's a horny bastard. So you get that, and again, it's so much creepier to me, and it's so much sicker in the live action TV show than it was in the video game, just because of that actor's face and like the little bit of joy and smile that he has and the way that he delivers the lines. And it's really fucked up. And Ellie gets one over on him, and while it's not nearly as violent and gory, but that's kind of been the tone of the show thus far, so it didn't surprise me. When she finally gets the meat cleaver and just starts fucking whacking away, you don't see near the amount of blood splatter or carnage or the sound design that really lets you know like she's fucking hitting brain at this point that she did in the video game. So I could see some people saying that last little moment is not as satisfying, because you definitely want a sick fuck like that to just get it in the worst way possible, and you kind of want to see it. So you never actually get to see it in the game, but what you hear and what splatters and all that kind of stuff, the way that it's kind of framed, it's a little more effective. But I still think it's very effective in the show.
Stop! Stop!
Fucking touch me!
Okay, it's me! It's me! It's me! Look! Look! It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl.
It's me.
It's me. It's okay, baby girl.
You're tearing me apart!
But we need to backpedal just a little bit, because I was following the events with Ellie. But my absolute favorite moment of this show is one of my absolute favorite moments in the video game, because it is Joel at his most primal badass. And especially for the show that's kind of toned down the violence quite a bit from the video game, I can imagine this scene is even more awesome for those that have only followed the show. Where while after Joel kills the guy that comes downstairs with the knife, gets the drop on him, sneaks up on him, which is a really cool scene in and of itself, and he starts to go and explore and trying to find Ellie, and finds the little town that David's community is in, and finds the bodies that are hung up, like the slaughterhouse, which is just a gnarly ass visual that's both in the video game and in the show. I love all that. But when you get to the point where he gets the drop on those two people and ties them both up and does his little method of torture and interrogation to where he fucks up one person and gets them to point at a map and says, your friend over there better give me the same exact information or I'm gonna fuck both of you up. Such a really cool, unique form of interrogation that I never seen until the video game. And I love the way that they portray it, because they don't shy away from any of it. They don't cut any of it. It's basically shot for shot, line for line of the video game. Stabs the dude in his kneecap and just, I don't have time for this. Just no holds barred badass Joel. And Pedro delivers it awesomely. And especially the way that it ends, to where he's fucking this dude up. He's putting the fear of God into this guy and tells him, like, point to this map where this girl is, where this town is, and your buddy over there better tell me the same answer or I'm going to keep going. And, oh, okay, and then points at something, and then he kills the guy, just fucking takes him out after he gives him his answer, and then the other guy starts getting scared and starts to puff his chest up a little bit, and he's like, oh, I ain't telling you shit, man, I ain't telling you nothing, and he just picks up a pipe, and he's like, that's okay, I believe him. Whack! Oh, I love that. That's my favorite moment of this episode. It's one of at least my top 4 favorite moments of the video game. So all in all, guys, this is another, I feel like a broken record, awesome episode of The Last of Us. I told you guys a month ago, I genuinely love the way that this show created this video game story and is retelling everything. It's just different enough, but the important moments to me, they're nailing every single one of them. And I could see this episode being among everybody's favorite. It's certainly in my top 3. And again, that's another broken record. Every time I revisit one of these episodes and I watch it and I go to review it, I'm like, fuck, you know what? I said last week that might be my favorite. This might be my favorite. It's just, they're damn near flawless episodes to me. So for those of you that disagree, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. For this Last of Us fanatic, I've gotten everything that I've wanted out of this season. And so episode 8, another gigantic high spot, just knocked out of the park of this whole segment of that story. And we got one more week to talk about The Last of Us before the indeterminate amount of time we have to wait for season 2. So what do you guys think about episode 8? Let me know your thoughts, and please check out my playlist of all of the Last of Us show episodes that I've done so far. We're also gonna have a live stream tomorrow night where we're gonna have Griffin Schiller from Film Speak and the Haunted Hippie for the first time on my channel, both of them. So be sure to check that out. Like and share this video, hit that subscribe button, and as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.